I've always been good at disappearing. Not the magic trick kind, just the ability to fade into backgrounds, to speak so softly that people lean in and still miss half of what I say. My high school yearbook quote should have been, "Who?" because that's what most people would say if you mentioned my name. When I got my college acceptance letter to Westlake University, I promised myself things would be different. New city, new people, new bowls. Eli. I'd speak up in class discussions. I'd make actual friends instead of lunch table acquaintances. Maybe I'd even go to a party without spending the whole night petting the host's cat in a back bedroom. But standing outside apartment 307, with a duffel bag cutting into my shoulder and a box of belongings that suddenly seemed pathetically small, all my brave new world fantasies evaporated. My hand hovered near the door. I'd never had a roommate before. What if he was awful? What if he was perfect and made me look even more awkward by comparison? I sighed and knocked. 3 seconds passed, then 5, then... The door swung open, and there he was. "You must be Eli." The guy standing in the doorway was backlit by afternoon sun streaming through the apartment windows, giving him a golden halo effect that seemed almost deliberately unfair. He had the kind of smile advertising companies would pay thousands for, bright, easy, with a slight crooked edge to the right. "I'm James. Was starting to think you weren't real." He was taller than me by about 3 inches, which put him just over 6 feet. Athletic, but not in the intimidating neck-thicker-than-head way of the football guys. More like someone who ran for the actual enjoyment of it. His dark hair curled slightly where it was longest on top, and he had a light shadow of stubble that looked intentional rather than forgotten. "Sorry," I said, my voice coming out embarrassingly small. I cleared my throat. The bus was late, and then I got a little lost. "No worries, man." He grabbed the box from my arms before I could protest. "Come in. It's not exactly the Ritz, but the water pressure's decent, and I haven't seen any roaches yet." I followed him inside, noting the easy way he moved, confident and loose-limbed. The apartment was small but bright, a combined living room and kitchen area with 2 doors I assumed led to bedrooms and a bathroom visible at the end of a short hall. "So you're the left bedroom," James said, nodding toward one of the doors. "Hope that's cool. I got here yesterday and just picked one. They're basically identical." "That's fine," I said, trying to match his casual tone. "I don't need much space." "Well, you've got what there is of it." He placed my box down on the kitchen counter, then turned to face me with that same easy smile. "You want the tour? It's literally 4 rooms, so it'll be the shortest tour in history." I nodded, and he showed me around. The bathroom with its temperamental hot water. Turn it all the way left, count to 10, then back a quarter turn. The living room with a second-hand couch and a decent TV. The tiny kitchen with barely enough counter space for a toaster. His bedroom looked already lived in, clothes draped over a chair, laptop open on the desk, sheets rumpled. My room was bare but clean. Just a twin bed, a desk, and a narrow closet. I set my duffel down on the bed, feeling that familiar tightness in my chest. This would be home now. This stranger would be my roommate. I had no idea how to do either of those things properly. "So what's your major?" James asked, leaning against my doorframe. He crossed his arms, and I couldn't help noticing the way his t-shirt pulled slightly across his chest. "English literature," I said, waiting for the usual smirk or comment about job prospects. Instead, he nodded appreciatively. "Cool, I'm in sports medicine. We're like academic opposites." "Yeah, I guess so." I unzipped my duffel, mostly to have something to do with my hands. "You want help unpacking?" he offered. "No, I'm good. Thanks, though." "All right, I'll let you settle in." He pushed off from the doorframe. "I was thinking of ordering pizza later if you want in. First night roommate tradition or whatever." "Sure," I said. "I like pretty much anything except anchovies." "A man of taste," he said with mock solemnity. "We'll get along just fine." After he left, I sat on the edge of the bed and exhaled slowly. It could be worse, I told myself. At least he seemed nice. But there was already something unsettling about him, Not in a bad way, but in the way very beautiful art can be unsettling. He was too easy to look at, too fluid in his movements, too comfortable in his skin. I unpacked methodically, arranging my books on the desk, hanging the few decent clothes I owned, placing my laptop on the desk. The room still looked painfully bare, but at least it held traces of me now. That night, we ate pizza sitting on the living room floor because we didn't have a coffee table yet. James asked normal roommate questions. Where I was from, Cincinnati. If I played any sports, no. What music I liked. A little of everything, which was both true and safely non-committal. I learned he was from California, loved basketball, but had blown out his knee senior year of high school and had a playlist for every possible mood. Including first night with a new roommate who seemed super quiet? I asked, surprising myself with a slight teasing tone. James laughed, a genuine sound that made the corners of his eyes crinkle. Especially that. It's mostly chill indie stuff. Non-threatening background music. Very considerate. I try. He wiped his hands on a napkin. I should warn you, I'm not always this well-behaved. I have friends over sometimes. I stay up late. I sing in the shower. I'm a deep sleeper, I said. It wasn't entirely true, but it seemed like the right thing to say. And I don't mind people coming over. Good, because there's a party Friday in the building, apartment 212. You should come. The familiar anxiety fluttered. Maybe. I have some reading to get through. Classes haven't even started yet. I like to get ahead. He studied me for a moment, head tilted slightly. All right, bookworm, but the offer stands. Later, when we'd both retreated to our rooms, I heard music seeping under my door. Soft indie rock, just as he'd promised. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the muffled melody and the occasional creak of James moving around in his room. My room in my parents' house had always been silent at night. Here, there were footsteps above us, a distant laugh from another apartment, cars on the street below. And James, a stranger separated from me by a thin wall, breathing, existing, maybe thinking about whether I was as awkward as I felt. I fell asleep with my lamp still on, wrapped in a strange mix of anxiety and unexpected hope. The first week passed in a blur of syllabus reviews, campus navigation, and the peculiar dance of learning another person's habits. James was an early riser, already finishing his morning run when I stumbled into the kitchen at 8 a.m. He drank his coffee black, took absurdly long showers, and had a habit of drumming his fingers on any available surface when thinking. He was also, I discovered, almost aggressively friendly. He introduced me to people in the building, waved to strangers on campus, and seemed to make friends as easily as breathing. Where I carefully planned my routes to avoid unnecessary social contact, James seemed to seek it out. Lena from 209 is having people over for drinks tonight, he said one evening, tossing his keys onto the kitchen counter. You in? I looked up from my book. I don't know. Come on, man. You've been reading for like 6 hours. It's a good book. I'm sure it is. He dropped onto the couch beside me, close enough that I caught the clean scent of his shampoo. But it'll still be there tomorrow. I marked my page and closed the book. Is this where you give me the college experience speech? Ah, he grinned. This is where I selfishly ask you to come because Elena's roommate is this intense chemistry major who cornered me last time and talked about organic compounds for 40 minutes. I need you as my escape hatch. I couldn't help smiling. So I'm social camouflage. Exactly, see? You get me already. He bumped my shoulder with his. Just for an hour. If you hate it, we'll leave and watch a movie or something. That "we" caught me off guard. The easy assumption that if I was uncomfortable, he'd leave too. It was such a small thing, but it settled something in me. Fine, I said. 1 hour. Elena's apartment was crowded and loud, fairy lights strung across the ceiling and red Solo cups in everyone's hands. James kept his word, staying close as we navigated the room. He introduced me to people whose names immediately evaporated from my memory, his hand occasionally touching my back or shoulder to guide me through clusters of bodies. Each brief contact sent a shock of awareness through me that I tried desperately to ignore. An hour stretched to 2, then 3. James got pulled into a heated debate about basketball seasons, and I found myself in a surprisingly decent conversation with a film student about adaptations of classic novels. By the time James found me again, I was actually enjoying myself. "Ready to bail?" he asked, leaning close to be heard over the music. "Actually, it's not bad," I admitted. His smile widened. "Look at you, social butterfly." "I wouldn't go that far. Baby steps." He raised his cup in a toast. "Proud of you, Rumi." The warmth in his voice did something strange to my chest. I blamed it on the single beer I'd nursed all night. We walked home under streetlights, the autumn air crisp around us. James talked about his classes, gesturing expressively, occasionally walking backward to face me while making a particularly important point about his anatomy professor's bizarre teaching methods. "You're going to trip," I warned. "Nah, I have excellent spatial awareness." As if to prove my point, he immediately stumbled over an uneven section of sidewalk. I caught his arm, steadying him. "You were saying?" "Okay, I have mostly excellent spatial awareness," he laughed. Then, instead of pulling away, he draped his arm across my shoulders. "This is safer anyway." We walked the rest of the way like that, his arm a warm weight across my shoulders, my heart beating so loudly I was certain he could hear it. I told myself it meant nothing. He was just friendly, tactile with everyone. I'd seen him high-five strangers and hug casual acquaintances. This was just how he was. But that night, lying in bed, I replayed the feeling of his arm around me, the lingering scent of him on my clothes, and knew I was already in trouble. "What do you think of this one?" James held up a movie case. "Classic horror. The original, not the terrible remake." It was Friday night, 3 weeks into the semester. We'd fallen into a routine of sorts, takeout and movies on Fridays when neither of us had other plans. Tonight was Chinese food, and James's turn to pick the film. "I don't really do horror," I admitted. "What? Everyone does horror." He looked genuinely baffled. I shrugged, focusing on arranging the takeout containers on our new coffee table, a yard sale find James had proudly dragged home last weekend. "I get too invested. Can't separate myself from what's happening on screen." "That's adorable." He set the horror movie aside and rifled through his collection. "Okay, compromise. Psychological thriller, less gore, more bullshit, more mind games." "Still going to give me nightmares?" "I'll protect you," he said, making exaggerated boxing moves that nearly knocked over his soda. We settled on an action movie with just enough plot to keep my interest. As usual, James provided running commentary, critiquing fight scenes, predicting plot twists, occasionally rewinding to point out details I'd missed. I pretended to find it annoying, but truthfully, I loved watching him get excited about the smallest things. Halfway through the movie, he shifted on the couch, stretching his legs out. His thigh pressed against mine. I froze, waiting for him to move away, but he didn't seem to notice. Or if he did, he didn't care. I couldn't focus on the movie after that. All my awareness narrowed to that single point of contact, his leg against mine, warm and solid. I wondered if I should move, if staying still made it weird somehow. But moving would acknowledge it, and acknowledging it would make it a thing, and I wasn't prepared for that conversation. So I sat perfectly still, barely breathing, as the movie played on, and James laughed and gasped and exclaimed at all the right moments, seemingly oblivious to my internal crisis. When the credits rolled, he turned to me. "What did you think?" "Huh?" "The movie. What did you think?" "Oh, it was good." I had no idea how it had ended. "You hated it," he said, looking amused. "No, I scrambled for something intelligent to say about a movie I'd barely watched. The pacing was off in the middle." "True." He stretched his arms overhead, his t-shirt riding up to reveal a strip of skin above his waistband. I looked away quickly. "Next time you pick." "Something with subtitles and meaningful silences, probably." "Very funny." He grinned, then yawned widely. "I'm beat. Early practice tomorrow." "On Saturday?" "Coach is a sadist." He stood, and the absence of his leg against mine felt strangely significant. "Night, Eli," Night, James. I stayed on the couch long after he'd gone to bed, staring at the blank TV screen and trying to understand why such a tiny, meaningless thing had affected me so much. It wasn't like I'd never been touched before. I'd had friends in high school, not many, but enough. We'd shared spaces, brushed shoulders, existed in proximity. But this felt different. Everything with James felt different. That night, I dreamed of him. Nothing explicit, just the two of us walking somewhere dark, his hand finding mine, fingers interlacing as if they belonged together. I woke up with the phantom sensation of his touch still lingering on my skin and a hollow ache in my chest. Eli? Earth to Eli? I blinked, realizing James had been talking to me. We were in the kitchen, him at the stove making pasta, me supposedly chopping vegetables, but actually staring into space. Sorry, I said. What did you say? I asked if you wanted garlic bread too. He studied my face. You okay? You've been spacey all day. Just tired. Paper due Monday. He nodded, but kept watching me with an intensity that made me nervous. James had many expressions, but serious wasn't usually one of them. What? I asked. Nothing. He turned back to the pasta. After a moment, he added, Actually, can I ask you something? My stomach tightened. Sure. Are you happy here? With the apartment, I mean. With me as a roommate. The question caught me off guard. Of course. Why wouldn't I be? He shrugged, stirring the pasta more vigorously than necessary. You're hard to read sometimes. Thought maybe you regretted the whole roommate thing. No, I said, the word coming out more forcefully than I intended. No, it's good. It's really good, actually. He glanced at me, a small smile forming. Yeah? Yeah. Best roommate situation I could have hoped for. Even with my terrible singing and leaving wet towels everywhere? Even then. His smile widened. Good, because I like having you around, Eli. There was something in his voice, a softness that made my chest tight. I searched for a response that wouldn't reveal too much. You're just saying that because I'm the only one who'll watch your pretentious foreign films, I said finally, aiming for lightness. He laughed. That's definitely part of it. We ate dinner at the tiny kitchen table, our knees occasionally bumping underneath. James told me about his sports medicine practicum, how he'd helped wrap a sprained ankle today and gotten praised by the head trainer. I told him about my American literature professor who spoke exclusively in questions and never actually answered anything herself. It was so easy being with him like this. Too easy to forget that he was straight, that he saw me as nothing more than a friend, that the apartment was temporary and eventually we'd go our separate ways with nothing but occasional social media likes to maintain the connection. After dinner, James stood behind me as I washed the dishes, reaching around to place his plate in the sink. For a moment, he didn't move away. I could feel the heat of him at my back, close enough that if I leaned backward even slightly, we'd be touching. The kitchen suddenly seemed impossibly small. Thanks for cooking, I said, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. Least I could do since you helped with that resume yesterday. His voice was close to my ear, sending a shiver down my spine. You're good with words. That's why they let me into the English program. I joked weakly. He chuckled, and then finally moved away. The air rushed back into the space between us, and I realized I had been holding my breath. Later, as I tried to focus on reading in bed, I heard him moving around in his room. Music played softly, one of his many carefully curated playlists, this one full of slow, atmospheric songs with lyrics about longing and distance. I wondered if there was meaning in his choice, then immediately chided myself for the thought. Not everything was a message. Not everything was about me. Around midnight, the music stopped. I heard his door open, footsteps in the hall, the bathroom door closing. The shower started running. I tried not to think about him standing under the water, tried not to imagine droplets running down his chest, over his stomach, lower. I groaned and pressed my pillow over my face. This was becoming a problem. A few minutes later, the bathroom door opened again. Footsteps paused outside my door. I held perfectly still, wondering if he would knock. The moment stretched, taut with possibility. Then the footsteps moved on, his bedroom door closed, and the chance, whatever it might have been, evaporated. Sleep eluded me for hours. When it finally came, it was fitful, full of half-formed dreams where James was always just out of reach. "You're not like most guys I know." James's words broke a comfortable silence. We were on the couch again, my feet tucked under me, his stretched out on the coffee table. It was late, nearly 2 a.m., but neither of us seemed inclined toward sleep. The TV played on mute, casting flickering blue light across the room. "What do you mean?" I asked. He took a sip of his beer, considering. "Most guys are always performing, you know? Like they have something to prove. You don't do that." "Maybe I'm just bad at performing." "Nah." He shook his head. "You're just comfortable being yourself. It's refreshing." I snorted. "I am absolutely not comfortable being myself, ever." He turned to look at me fully. "Really? Because you seem pretty authentic to me." "That's different. That's just—" I searched for the words. "That's just what happens when you've never been good at pretending to be what other people want." "And what do you think people want?" I shrugged. "Someone louder, more confident. Someone who doesn't overthink every social interaction." "Someone more like me, you mean?" he said with a self-deprecating smile. "I didn't say that." "It's okay." He waved a hand dismissively. "I know I'm a lot sometimes. All extrovert, no filter." "I don't want you to be different," I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. Something shifted in his expression, a softening around his eyes. "No. No, you're good the way you are." I swallowed hard. "We balance each other out, right? You drag me to parties. I make sure you occasionally read a book." He laughed, the tension breaking. "Speaking of which, I still haven't started that novel you lent me. It's been 3 weeks." I know. I'll start it tomorrow, I swear." "You said that last week. This time, I mean it." He set his beer down and raised his right hand solemnly. "Scout's honor." "Were you even a scout?" "Absolutely not. Too much camping, not enough air conditioning." He grinned. "But the honor part still counts." We lapsed into comfortable silence again. Outside, rain had begun to fall, pattering gently against the windows. James closed his eyes, his head tipped back against the couch. The line of his throat was smooth and vulnerable in the dim light. "You ever feel like you're waiting for your life to start?" he asked suddenly, eyes still closed. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. Like everything so far has been preparation. For the real thing, whatever that is. I considered this. Sometimes. But I think maybe that's all life is. Just a series of preparations for things that end up being different than what you expected anyway." He opened his eyes, turning his head to look at me. "That's either really profound or really depressing. Why not both?" He smiled, slow and genuine. "See? This is what I mean. You say stuff like that, and it makes me think. A dangerous pastime." "I know." He nudged my leg with his foot. "But seriously, you're different. Special." The word hung in the air between us, heavy with potential meaning. I didn't know how to respond, didn't trust myself to speak without revealing too much. "Anyway," he said finally, sitting up straight, "I should probably get some sleep. Early class tomorrow." "Yeah, me too." Neither of us moved. "Eli," he said after a moment. "Yeah?" "I'm really glad you're my roommate." His sincerity caught me off guard. "I'm glad you're mine too." We looked at each other a beat too long, and something unspoken passed between us. Then he stood, breaking the moment. "Night," he said, his voice slightly rough. "Night, James." I stayed on the couch after he left, listening to the rain and wondering what would have happened if I'd been braver, if I'd reached for him, if I'd asked what he really meant by special. But I'd never been brave. and he'd never given me reason to believe he was anything other than straight. Just friendly, affectionate, comfortable with closeness in a way I'd never experienced with other male friends. That was all. I went to bed with the weight of unspoken words pressing down on my chest. The sound woke me around 3 a.m. At first, I thought it was part of a dream. A low, rhythmic creaking. Then a soft gasp cut through the darkness, and I realized it was coming from James's room. I froze, suddenly wide awake. The wall between our rooms was thin, and now that I was listening, I could hear everything. The subtle movement of his bed frame, his quickening breath, a barely audible groan. Heat flooded my face as I realized what I was hearing. I should put in earbuds or bury my head under the pillow. I should give him privacy. Instead, I lay perfectly still, my whole body tense as I listened to the unmistakable sounds of James pleasuring himself. Another gasp, louder this time. I imagined his head thrown back, his throat exposed, his hand moving beneath the sheets. The image sent a jolt of arousal through me so intense it was almost painful. I hated myself for listening, for the way my own body responded, for the fantasy taking shape in my mind, of crossing the hall, opening his door, replacing his hand with mine. The sounds grew more urgent. I bit my lip hard enough to hurt, trying to focus on the pain instead of the ache building inside me. It didn't work. Nothing worked except pressing my face into the mattress and hoping desperately that the walls muffled my own ragged breathing. Then I heard it. So quiet I almost missed it. A name. My name. Eli. I sat up so quickly my head spun, certain I'd imagined it. But then it came again, unmistakable in the quiet of the apartment. Eli! A shuddering breath. Fuck Eli! Time seemed to stop. The world narrowed to that single sound, my name on his lips as he came, a broken whisper that changed everything. I didn't sleep again that night. I lay awake until dawn broke, replaying that moment, questioning if I'd heard correctly, wondering what it meant if I had. By morning, I'd convinced myself it had been a sleep-deprived hallucination, a product of my own desperate wishing. But when James emerged from his room, hair tousled and eyes avoiding mine, a flush climbing up his neck when I said good morning, I began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, it had been real after all. The next few days were strange. James wasn't exactly avoiding me, but something had shifted. He came home later than usual, spent more time in his room with the door closed, and when we did interact, there was a new tension between us, charged and uncertain. I didn't know how to bridge the gap. I couldn't very well say, "Hey, did you masturbate while saying my name the other night?" So I gave him space, even as everything in me wanted to push, to ask, to understand what was happening. On Thursday, nearly a week after that night, I came home to find James in the kitchen making dinner. 2 place settings were arranged on the counter, a bottle of wine already open. "Hey," he said when I walked in, "I made pasta." "You didn't have to do that." "Wanted to." He handed me a glass of wine. "Peace offering." "For what?" He shrugged, turning back to the stove. "Being weird lately." I took a sip of wine, unsure how to respond. "You haven't been weird." "Eli." He glanced at me, one eyebrow raised. "We both know that's not true." "Okay, maybe a little weird," I conceded. "Is everything okay?" He was quiet for a moment, stirring the pasta sauce. "Just been dealing with some stuff. Figuring things out. Anything I can help with?" "Maybe." He poured the pasta into a colander, steam rising around him. "Not sure yet." We ate dinner side by side at the counter, talking about safer topics, classes, upcoming midterms, a party one of his teammates was throwing next weekend. By the time we finished the wine, the awkwardness had mostly dissipated, replaced by our usual comfortable rhythm. "Movie?" he suggested as we cleared the dishes. "Sure, your pick." He chose a comedy, something mindless and familiar. We settled on the couch, closer than strictly necessary given the amount of available space. Halfway through the film, he stretched his arm across the back of the couch, not quite touching me, but close enough that I could feel the warmth of him. I tried to focus on the movie, but all I could think about was closing the small distance between us. What would happen if I leaned into him? If I rested my head on his shoulder? If I admitted I'd hurt him that night? I did none of those things. Instead, I sat rigid with indecision until the movie ended, then made an excuse about needing to finish a reading response for tomorrow's class. Right, he said, looking faintly disappointed. Don't stay up too late, bookworm. I won't. In my room, I stared at my laptop screen without seeing it, replaying the evening and all the moments I could have said something, done something. Why was I always like this, so caught in my own head that I couldn't take even the smallest risk? Around midnight, I gave up on the pretense of studying and got ready for bed. As I was brushing my teeth, James's door opened and he appeared in the hallway, wearing only basketball shorts that hung low on his hips. Oh, he said, seeing me at the sink. Sorry, didn't realize you were in here. Almost done, I mumbled around my toothbrush. He hesitated, then moved to stand in the doorway. Can I ask you something? I rinsed my mouth, heart racing. Sure. Are we okay? You and me? The vulnerability in his voice nearly undid me. Of course we are. Why wouldn't we be? I don't know. Just checking. He ran a hand through his hair, the movement drawing attention to the defined muscles of his arm, his chest. I don't want things to be weird between us. They're not, I said. Everything's normal. He nodded, but didn't look convinced. Okay. Good. I should have let it go there, should have said goodnight and gone to my room. Instead, I heard myself ask, why would things be weird? He went very still. No reason. James. It's nothing, Eli. He looked away, jaw tight. Just me being in my head too much lately. I took a step toward him, something reckless building in me. About what? His eyes met mine, and the intensity in them made me stop breathing. About a lot of things. About... He exhaled sharply. Look, can we just forget it? It's late. I'm not making sense. You're making perfect sense, I said softly. You're just not saying what you really mean. A flash of surprise crossed his face, followed by something that looked almost like fear. Eli, it's okay, I said quickly. We don't have to talk about it, whatever it is. Relief and disappointment mingled in his expression. Yeah, okay. He stepped back from the doorway. Good night. Night. I went to bed with my skin humming with unfulfilled potential, with all the words we weren't saying. Friday night. James had convinced me to go to his teammates' party, arguing that midterms were over and we both deserved to blow off steam. The apartment was crowded, music pulsing through the rooms, bodies pressed close as people danced and talked and drank. James stayed by my side for the first hour, making sure I had a drink, introducing me to people, steering me away when conversations got too dull or too intense. Then his ex-girlfriend arrived with a group of friends, and he tensed beside me. You okay? I asked. Yeah. He took a long drink from his cup. Just didn't know she was coming. I'd heard about Megan. They dated freshman year, broken up over the summer. Do you want to leave? No, he said too quickly. We're cool. Ancient history. But I noticed how he kept glancing toward her across the room, how he suddenly seemed determined to get very drunk. By midnight, he was well past tipsy, laughing too loudly at jokes, slinging his arm around my shoulders and keeping it there. You're my best friend. You know that? He said into my ear, his breath warm against my skin. You're drunk, I replied, trying to ignore the way my body responded to his closeness. Doesn't make it not true. His fingers played with the hair at the nape of my neck, sending shivers down my spine. You get me, Eli. No one else does. I swallowed hard. Maybe we should go home. Why? You not having fun? His mouth was so close to my ear, I could feel the shape of each word. I'm having fun, I said, but you're going to feel terrible tomorrow. Worth it. His hand slid from my shoulders to my waist, steady and warm. I like seeing you out like this. You're different. More you. I didn't know what that meant, but the way he was looking at me made my chest tight. Across the room, I noticed Megan watching us, her expression unreadable. "James," I said carefully, "your ex is staring." He didn't even turn to look. "Letter." There was a defiance in his voice I didn't understand. Before I could respond, he straightened up, his hand dropping away from my waist. "I need another drink," he announced. "You want one?" "I'm good." He nodded and disappeared into the crowd toward the kitchen. I found a quieter corner and waited, watching the party unfold around me. 5 minutes passed, then 10. No sign of James. After 15 minutes, I went looking. The kitchen was packed, but no James. The bathroom door was open, empty. I checked the balcony, the hallway. Nothing. Finally, I tried the bedrooms. The first was dark and empty. The second had a couple making out on the bed who barely noticed my apologetic retreat. The third door was closed. I hesitated, then knocked softly. "James?" I called. "You in there?" Silence. I was about to walk away when I heard a sound from inside. Something between a laugh and a "I love you," he says suddenly, the first time either of us has said those words. "I need you to know that. This isn't about us. This isn't because I don't want what we had, what we have." The past tense slips in so easily, and it cuts me to the bone. "I love you too," I say, because it's true, and because it feels important that he knows it, even as everything crumbles around us. "I wish," he starts, then stops. "God, Eli, I wish things were different." Me too. We stay on the phone, neither willing to hang up, as if the connection might somehow survive as long as we keep talking. But eventually, his mother calls him for dinner, and we have to say goodbye. "I'll call tomorrow," he promises. "I'll be here," I say. But tomorrow's call is shorter, more subdued. And the next one even more so. We're both trying to protect ourselves, I think. Trying to ease the inevitable pain by withdrawing in small increments instead of all at once. April arrives. The apartment lease renewal form appears in my inbox, forcing decisions I've been avoiding. I can't afford this place alone. I need a new roommate or a new home. James calls less frequently now. We still text, but the messages grow more generic, less intimate. Neither of us mentions what we were becoming to each other, what we might have been. It's easier, somehow, to let it fade than to acknowledge the loss directly. One night, I dream of him so vividly that I wake reaching for him, the ghost of his touch still lingering on my skin. I check my phone to find a text sent at 3 a.m. his time. "Thinking of you," just that. No elaboration, no follow-up. But it's enough to break something open inside me. Enough to make me call him in the middle of my day, his early morning. "Hey," he answers, voice sleep rough and achingly familiar. "Everything okay?" "No," I say honestly. "Nothing's okay." He's silent for a moment. "Eli, I miss you. I miss us. I hate that we're pretending this isn't killing us both." A long exhale. "I know. Tell me it's really over. Tell me there's no chance." He doesn't answer immediately, and hope, dangerous, foolish hope, flares in my chest. "I don't know what the future holds," he says finally. "I just know I can't ask you to wait. Not when I don't know if I'm ever coming back. Not when everything is so uncertain. It's not fair to you. Shouldn't that be my choice? It is your choice. But it's mine too." His voice breaks slightly. "And I can't be what you need right now. I can't be present. I can't be honest about us with my family while they're going through this. I can't give you any of the things I promised I would when I got back. And you deserve all of those things, Eli." The reasonableness of it makes it worse somehow. There's no one to blame, no villain in this story, just circumstance and distance and teaming. "So that's it," I say flatly. "I don't want it to be." He sounds as devastated as I feel. But I don't see another way right now. We talk a little longer, about smaller things, his father's recovery, my classes, the new coffee shop that opened near campus. as if we're just friends again, as if we can rewind to before everything changed. But we can't. The ghost of what we were, what we could have been, haunts every word. When we finally hang up, I curl into myself on what used to be his bed and let myself cry for what feels like the first time in months. May brings finals and decisions about the future. I find a new apartment, smaller but closer to campus, with a roommate from my American literature class who seems quiet and unobtrusive. I pack up James's remaining belongings and ship them to California, a task so painful I have to do it in small sessions, taking breaks to breathe through the memories each object evokes. His basketball from the court where we played one-on-one. The mug I bought him as a joke that became his favorite. The sweatshirt he left draped over my desk chair the last morning before he went home for what was supposed to be just 3 weeks. I keep that last item, telling myself I'll send it later, but knowing I probably won't. The texts become less frequent. Weeks pass between calls. I date a guy from my poetry workshop, sweet, uncomplicated, present, but end it after a month when I realize I'm just going through the motions. It's not fair to either of us when my heart is still caught in the in-between with someone thousands of miles away. Summer arrives. I take a job at a bookstore and sublease my new apartment, spending the hot months in Cincinnati with my family. My sister asks about James once, sees the look on my face, and doesn't mention him again. In August, just before the fall semester begins, my phone lights up with his name for the first time in over a month. "Are you back at school yet?" My heart races as I type, "Move in tomorrow." New place, I remember. 512 Oakwood, right? The fact that he remembers the address I mentioned only once in passing makes my chest ache. That's right. 3 dots appear and disappear several times, as if he's typing and deleting responses. Finally, thinking of you. Good luck with the new semester. It's friendly. Detached. The message of someone who has moved on, or is trying to. I should respond in kind, maintain the careful distance we've established. Instead, I find myself typing. "I still sleep in your sweatshirt sometimes." The confession feels too raw, too honest after months of safe platitudes. I regret it immediately, but can't bring myself to delete it. The truth is, I'm tired of pretending. Tired of acting like he was just my roommate, just a friend, just a chapter of my life that I've closed. No response comes that night, or the next day. I tell myself it's fine, that I shouldn't have expected anything else, that maybe it's for the best. Then, 3 days later, as I'm arranging books on my new shelves, there's a knock at my door. I open it, expecting my new roommate who isn't due until tomorrow, or maybe the building manager with final paperwork. It's James. He looks different. Hair longer, face leaner, shadows under his eyes that weren't there before. But his smile, that slight crooked edge to the right, is exactly the same. "Hi," he says, as if appearing at my door after 6 months is the most natural thing in the world. I can't speak, can't move. Can only stare at him, convinced I'm hallucinating. "Can I come in?" he asks when I don't respond. I step back wordlessly, making space for him to enter. He does, glancing around the small apartment with interest. "Nice place," he says. "Better water pressure than the old one?" The mundane question breaks through my shock. "What are you doing here, James?" He turns to face me fully, his expression growing serious. "Your text, about the sweatshirt." "What about it?" It made me realize something. He takes a step closer. We never really got closure. We never really ended things. We just faded. And I couldn't stand it anymore. "So you flew across the country? For closure?" The words come out sharper than I intend. "No." Another step closer. "For a beginning." My heart stutters. "What does that mean?" "It means I transferred. Back here." His eyes never leave mine. "It means my dad is doing better, much better. It means I've spent the last 6 months thinking about you every day, trying to convince myself that letting you go was the right thing to do." "And was it?" I barely breathed the question. "No." He shakes his head. "It was the worst decision I've ever made." Hope blooms in my chest, dangerous and sweet. James, I'm not saying it will be easy, he continues quickly. I'm still figuring things out. My parents still don't know about us, about me. But what I realized is that I don't want to figure it out without you. I don't want an in-between life anymore. He's close enough now that I can smell his cologne, the same one he always wore. Close enough that I could reach out and touch him if I were brave enough. What are you saying exactly? I need to hear him say it. Need there to be no ambiguity this time. I'm saying I love you. His voice is steady, certain. I'm saying I want to be with you, openly, honestly, completely. If you still want that too. The words I've been waiting to hear for months. The promise we never got to fulfill before life intervened. It feels too good to be true, too perfect after all the pain. What if something happens again? I ask, voicing my deepest fear. What if you have to leave again? Then we figure it out together. He reaches for my hand, and I let him take it. No more unilateral decisions, no more noble sacrifices. Whatever comes, we face it as a team. His fingers are warm against mine, familiar and new all at once. I want to believe him, want to believe in us. But the hurt of the past months is still raw. I need time, I say finally. To trust this, to trust you again. He nods, no hint of disappointment in his expression. I understand. I'll wait, however long it takes. You'll wait? I've learned my lesson about walking away from the best thing in my life. He squeezes my hand gently. I'm not making that mistake again. We stand there, connected by our joined hands, the air between us charged with possibility and caution and hope. It's not a fairy tale ending. It's messy and uncertain and real. But maybe that's better than a fantasy. Maybe that's what love actually is, choosing each other again and again, despite the complications, despite the fear. Do you want to get coffee? I ask. Talk? Catch up? He smiles, relief washing over his features. I'd like that. We walk to the coffee shop down the street, side by side but not touching. Not yet. There's distance still to bridge, trust to rebuild. But as we sit across from each other, as he tells me about his father's recovery and his decision to transfer back, as I tell him about my summer and my new classes, I feel something shifting between us. The possibility of a second chance, of a new beginning. October brings crisp air and falling leaves. James and I have settled into a cautious relationship, spending time together almost daily, rediscovering each other slowly. We haven't kissed since his return, haven't defined what we are to each other. But there's an understanding between us, a patient certainty that we're moving towards something real. He tells his sister about us over the phone one evening while I sit beside him, holding his hand. She's supportive, excited even, promising to visit soon. It's a small step toward the openness he promised, but it means everything to me. On a cool Friday night, he invites me to the rooftop where we once shared whiskey and confessions. He's brought blankets again, and a small portable speaker playing the same indie playlist from our first night as roommates. Feeling nostalgic? I tease as we settle side by side, looking out at the city lights. More like appreciative. He turns to face me. Sometimes you have to lose something to understand how precious it was. I nod, understanding perfectly. And sometimes you get a second chance. If you're lucky. His hand finds mine in the darkness. Very, very lucky. We sit in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the music, feeling the night air on our skin. I'm content just to be near him, to have this moment that once seemed impossible. Move in with me, he says suddenly. I look at him in surprise. What? When your lease is up, move in with me. His eyes are earnest in the dim light. I found a place, small but nice. Walking distance to campus. I've already signed the lease, but it would be better with you. Are you sure? I search his face for any hint of doubt. That's a big step. I'm sure about you. He squeezes my hand. Everything else we can figure out as we go. The simplicity of his certainty, after so many months of doubt and separation, fills me with warmth. I'd like that. His smile is soft, intimate. Yeah? Yeah. He shifts closer, his free hand coming up to touch my cheek. Eli. James. Can I kiss you now? He asks, voice barely above a whisper. I've been wanting to since the moment I saw you again, but I wanted to be sure you were ready. In answer, I lean forward and press my lips to his. The kiss is gentle at first, a relearning, a homecoming. Then deeper, a promise of everything we still are to each other, everything we could be. When we break apart, he rests his forehead against mine. Eyes closed. I missed you. So much. I missed you too. We stay on the roof for hours, talking, kissing, making plans for a future that feels possible again. As the night grows colder, we gather the blankets and head back to my apartment. At the door, James hesitates. I should probably go home, he says, though his eyes say the opposite. I take his hand. Stay. He follows me inside, into my bedroom. We undress each other slowly, reverently, rediscovering what we once knew so well. There's no urgency, just the quiet joy of being together again, of having this second chance. Afterward, we lie side by side in bed, not touching except for our joined hands between us. The silence is comfortable, full of unspoken understanding. If I do this, James whispers finally, turning to face me in the darkness. If we do this, there's no going back. Say the word. I know what he's asking. No more in between. No more hiding. A real life together, with all the complications and joys that brings. It won't be easy. There will be conversations with his parents, with my family. There will be friends who don't understand, strangers who judge. There will be hard days and doubts and fikirs. But there will also be this, his hand in mine, his smile in the morning, his voice saying my name like it's something precious. There will be a home we build together, a life that's honest and true. I turn to face him, seeing everything I need to see in his eyes. Stay, I say again. Not just for tonight, but for all the nights to come. He smiles, understanding completely, and pulls me closer. Outside, the city continues its nighttime rhythm. Inside, in the quiet of my bedroom, soon to be our bedroom, we hold each other, no longer afraid of what comes next. No longer trapped in the in-between, but stepping together into whatever awaits us. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. I just know that we'll face it together. And for now, that's enough.